Yeah, so welcome everyone to the kgateway community meeting. If you're just joining, add your name to the attendees list. Actually, if we can share the doc in the chat, if Jenny or Ian, you have a link to it, that'd be great. And then the first thing on our agenda is the learning pathways. So this was contributed by, I think, Aton and Will. So on our website now, there are some tracks you can do to walk through different features that kgateway supports, ranging from basic fundamentals like using Argo rollouts or Canary or continue Canary releases with Argo rollouts. Other things like using HTTPS with kgateway, and then some other more like kgateway specific stuff like the Istio integrations, and then the AI gateway features. So they did a really good job, creating blogs, videos, and labs for each topic. So if everyone has a chance to check it out and give feedback, that would be great. I know a lot of the labs are based on Instruct, so I think the blog will walk you through the same guide. But it would be nice maybe to have a sandbox environment, and potentially we can link that here as well. So maybe next meeting we can demo that sandbox environment as and walk through more of these tracks and get Aton and Will to give an overview of what the different labs are. And this will be a good way to get people onboarded and playing with kgateway in a easy environment, instead of having to just read through the docs and set everything up themselves. Any questions on the learning paths? Cool. Okay, well then I have a very quick demo for my Jot API PR. So this is an review. Thank you, Jenny, for reviewing it. There's a related enhancement proposal that kind of walks through the reason behind some of these changes. So the RBAC will be in a separate follow-up PR, but we want a simple API that works both for the Envoy data plane and the Agent Gateway data plane. So this API, we're trying to avoid having Envoy specific fields and just make it very generic to support both cases. And with that, I can pull up Golang and give a quick demo. So the Jot API is actually living on traffic policy, similar to a lot of our other stuff like CSRF cores. So there's a new Jot field here, and this is just defining the validation. So this is RBAC will be a separate field on the traffic policy that's unrelated to Jot validation. And under Jot validation, we have this extension ref field that lets you reference a gateway extension. Eventually, this can probably have more fields like the validation mode, other things, but right now Agent Gateway doesn't actually support validation mode, so we're just leaving it off for now. But this is, the Jot validation will not just be the extension ref. Eventually it will extend to more things you can tweak. The extension ref, it has to be in the same namespace, so the gateway extension you define will have to be a local object ref for the traffic policy that you're using. And then in the gateway extensions, we also have, similar to xDof and rate limit, a new field called Jot providers. So this is a map of Jot provider name to the Jot provider config. And the Jot provider config has a very basic, Jot provider configuration for the issuer, the audience, the token source, claims to headers, the source for the actual key. So this is only local right now, where eventually we want to support remote, but again, Agent Gateway only supports local, so we're gonna keep it as that. And then the keep token source is another field that we're adding. So with that, let me dive into the demo. So I have I've already actually installed a local kind cluster with the Agent Gateway A2A image loaded in case you want to try it out. I've installed the Gateway API resources, the control plane, and then I've applied some configs. So just the basic HTTP bin setup, and then a config that we're going to look at. So with that, let me go back to K9s. So you can see that HTTP bin is up, kgateway is up, and then our gateway is actually running. So let's look at the traffic policy first. So the traffic policy, like I mentioned for JOT, is like just referencing the extension ref right now. And this extension ref is the gateway extension. So if we look at the gateway extension, we have the JOT provider defined. So this is the example token I'm going to use to test. And that token actually looks like, I think I have it copied like this. So we'll just actually stay here. So if I look at the token in like the JOT inspector, you can see that I have like dev engineering, developer, just a bunch of random payloads defined. And then if I port forward and, oh wait, oh, it's already in use. I'm already port forwarding somewhere. And I send, but I guess first I have two paths actually. So one is let's actually look at the HTTP route. One is it doesn't have a JOT policy applied, and then the other does. So the status route doesn't have a JOT policy applied, but the get route does. So this is selecting the policy that we looked at earlier. So this one won't have any JOT validation logic, but then this one will. So if I go back and send that request, so if I first hit the status endpoint without a token, I get a 200 response back. Yep. But then if I do the same thing for the get endpoint, I should get an error saying the JOT is missing. And then if I use the correct JOT, I should get the 200 again. So we see we get the 200. And then, you know, any other combination of like, if I use like fake, it's not valid. If I like edit it to include 1, 2, 3 instead of like the actual token, I get verification fails. Yeah, so that's kind of the per route JOT. You can also like, you don't have to attach it at the route level. You could attach it to the whole HTTP route. Right now it's like using a extension ref, or not the extension ref, extension ref here on the rule, but you could also attach it via target ref and get the same functionality on both routes. So that's another option. So yeah, are there any questions about the API or like functionality? There's a separate PR for RBAC actually that I also have as a draft, but it includes the JOT changes as well. So once I get some reviews on the basic JOT, then this will be up for review. So cool. Okay. I think next on our list we had Jenny. So
I think Tim has a question in the chat.
Oh, Tim had a question. Sorry, I don't have the chat open. What was the question?
Tim, do you want to read it or? I can read it. Okay. Tim says.
Sorry, I had to go downstairs.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah, Nina, I joined late, and I haven't been. I kind of already hand waved over this. I haven't been following the JOT EP since it was originally opened. What's the argument for having local providers live in the gateway extension API?
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of follows a similar pattern to what we have for XStop and rate limit, and it lets you reuse the same gateway extension for multiple traffic policies. So you can define a grouping of JOTs that, you know, like one for dev, one for prod, and then reference it from the traffic policy. So you can reuse the providers you define in multiple traffic policies. I think we've seen users in the wild like have lots of JOT providers. So at one point I wanted to have the gateway extension have just one provider, like similar to like one single rate limit provider. But based on like how users are actually using JOT, it seems like it makes sense to have this as like a grouping. So we need all these JOT providers to be unique per gateway extension because like Envoy can't have duplicate JOT provider names. This is like a user-defined grouping of job providers that then they can reuse in the traffic policy. And this traffic policy, oh, I don't know why that clicked, will be used with RBAC and validation config that's in addition to just the extension ref. So you can imagine like you have one traffic policy that might allow like missing, but then that uses the same providers as another one. So it's like slightly different config on the traffic policy, but reusing the same job providers.
Yeah, so the main use case is like composability.
Yeah.
I think for local rate limiting, we inline that versus using the extensions, but I think, and I'm just kind of just talking out loud here, I think this follows the gateway extension, kind of like provider-based model anyways. So yeah, I was just curious. Thanks.
Yep. And this is also like a nice thing about this is eventually if we want people to be able to inline it for whatever reason, like we get feedback that it's not, you know, as friendly having like groupings, like they just want like one provider inlined. We can always extend this to have an inline provider. But I think this is like a nice way to start because it like off the bat gives you that composability. Like there's no reason in the future why we can't add a new field that's for inline job that's a one-off of the extension ref. So any other questions or? All right. I guess I had a question. Does everyone like the name extension ref? I think it matches the other ones, but it's not like super JOT specific. So like in the JOT example, it looks like this. So you have JOT and then dot extension ref. Does that seem reasonable to everyone? Like silence is consensus. So.
Yeah, as long as it's consistent with what we've already done, I don't understand anything anymore.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well then, if there's no other questions, you know, review the PR, review the EP. It kind of goes through a lot of the design trade-offs there, because there's a lot of different ways that we can approach it. So, cool. Okay, Jenny, do you want to take the next one?
Oh, yeah, this is just hopefully a quick one. So we want to make David a maintainer. He's actually been contributing to this repo for a couple of years. It was probably long overdue, but yeah, he has a bunch of contributions, and I think we already have the approvals. So I just want to ask in the meeting if there's any objections, and if not, I think we can get this merged.
Sounds like there's no objections.
All right, cool.
All right. That was quick. Next, Daniel, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so if you click on that xref, actually go back and click on the xref first. So just a high level context for everyone. Currently, the inference extension plugin, it manages the inference pool custom resource that's part of the inference extension project. And it manages status for inference pool, but it was just kind of initial status management. And so it's pretty limited. And I'm trying to iterate on it. And the next step is that the way status management works right now is if an inference pool is created and then the HTTP route is created that references that inference pool, the HTTP route status works as expected. It shows, hey, all the resolved references, right? Because an inference pool is a back-end reference for an HTTP route. All that works as expected. You look at the inference pool status as well. That works. And so I recently started adding some additional end-to-end tests that exercise kind of just common use cases where you've got multiple HTTP routes that reference the same backend inference pool. multiple inference pools with multiple HTTP routes, yada, yada, right? What I'm doing with these end-to-end tests is like for each test case, I've got a single manifest file that creates all the resources, the gateway, the HTTP routes, the inference pools, and I'm seeing that be very flaky. And what I'm seeing is just like this race condition where like the HTTP route is created, right along with the inference pool, and so the HTTP route surfaces an inference pool not found. And so, I'm looking at the inference extension plugin and saying, okay, let me add a watcher, using KRT to watch HTTP routes and basically essentially like manage HTTP status there. But it seems like that's not the right place to do it. And it's like, as I'm looking at it and kind of testing it out, it's like this kind of battle between the proxy translator that sets HTTP route status. And so, just trying to figure out like what the best way to resolve this issue, if anyone has any suggestions.
Yeah, so this is the work in progress status PR, or?
Yeah. This is, like I said, where I'm adding, the callback within the plugin itself, right? So in that status.go, it is already managing inference pool status just fine, right? But there needs to be a callback, I believe here, that whenever we see an HTTP route event, that we're checking to see like, okay, does the status need to be updated? So I don't know. I mean, has anyone seen this kind of race condition with like what I haven't tested is like, is this even effective with a service backend? I don't know if other people are using kind of these all-in-one manifests. I just find it kind of easier to manage the end-to-end test where like each unit, like each test case has its own set of manifests in its own namespace, right? So eventually they can be run in parallel.
Yeah, as far as I know, a lot of our tests are actually structured like that. So it's like apply all for like a specific namespace, like at least the AI like policy tests are like that. So I know Lawrence has done a lot of work on the statuses, so he might be a good person to reach out to, maybe on Slack. But yeah, is anyone on the call that has more context on like HTTP statuses specifically?
All right. I mean, if anyone does, feel free to ping me offline. I just figured since we're going to have a bunch of folks here in the meeting, I'd throw it out there and see if anyone had any guidance. But otherwise, yeah, again, if anyone has any ideas, feel free to throw them my way. Otherwise, I'm going to keep playing around with this. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this might be the first like pattern where the plugin is like patching the status. Like most of the time, I think the proxy syncer like has a separate like status patcher for the gateways and HTTP routes. So like the other plugins are responsible for that specific resource. So like the traffic policy status or the other statuses. I don't think like none of our plugins, as far as I know, update the status of like the HTTP route. So it might just be like something to talk to Lawrence about.
Okay, yeah, let me ping him because I mean, again, like I can go through the same EDE test manifest, like, and if I just separate the inference pool from everything else, right? Everything works, but it's the fact that they essentially get created one right after another. So it's like when the translation pass occurs, from an HTTP route standpoint at that point, right? It's like, okay, the inference pool doesn't exist as a backend. So I'm going to set status for the route saying, resolve refs false because there's no inference pool. But immediately after that, the inference pool does exist. And there's nothing like, I want like I'd want to be able to, in the plugin, like what I'm doing here, is watch these HTTP route events and then like kick off that translation pass or that, that status update to say, hey, do another, status reconciliation, and so that's kind of works out.
Yeah, any other questions or feedback for this? Or yeah, we might have to, let's take it offline then and
Yeah.
ask the ones in Slack. Cool, and then I think there's one last item on the agenda. Tom, do you want to talk about the sandbox?
I think
Sorry,
maybe
Nate,
the sandbox. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was stuck in another window. Yeah, I've been working on the sandbox to kind of get experience with kagent, and I threw kgateway in there so I could have a ingress. And I'm like, hey, this thing kind of, you can approach it from both ways. So from our angle, you can play around with kgateway, but it comes with a pre-configured, sample application. And again, might get some hooks into that and get some folks to check out that project. But it's real quick. You can stand it up, with K3D, and then it's got a pre-configured, ingress already, so people can look at that as an example and build things on top of it. So it's pretty bare bones. Sometimes I'll throw in Grafana and Prometheus in there. I don't think I've activated those yet. I might have some code in there. It's all simple bash, one-dimensional. I wasn't about flashy programming. I wanted it to be accessible to folks who may have a little bit of bash as well and understand what's going on. But I think it's a great platform for people to get started quickly. And then if you want to do some outside of instruct tutorials or stuff, you could use that as a base for all that. And I'm willing to contribute it to the code, or wherever you guys would want to put those artifacts. We're going to do that in kagent as well. So I thought, well, shoot, it could double down, right? But quick place to get started and run it locally if people want to, mess around with stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any questions about it? Like, I haven't really looked at it yet, so I'll have to dig around, but.
Yeah, just run the scripts. I think the basic instructions are in there. There's a couple of waits in there I need to document better and throw in some. So when you get to a wait, just let everything, normalize, make sure everything's running and hit Control-C. But it's just a good way to put a pause in that, works with anybody's machine speeds. So.
Yeah, very cool.
But you can access kagent on localhost or on the IP address of the machine, :7001. But I think I documented that in there. And you can, then again, if you wanted to get to your other stuff, you can access it there as well.
I don't know if it would be like a blocker or any problem really, but is there a hard dependency on using K3D instead of like kind or something like that?
No, it just need to be rewritten and modified a little bit. So like if we wanted to take this and say like immediately we could commit this, but we could have a subdirectory of K3D sandbox, and then someone could take this code, copy it, and then just rework it for kind. Yeah. I guess, I used kind a lot when I was at D2IQ, and then I went over to the other folks, Buoyant, right? And there was a lot of K3D over there. So I just like explored that, and that's kind of where I fell into. But yeah, it wouldn't be hard to rework the code here and then just change the docs a little bit and have that available. Doesn't offend my sensibilities.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know that we have like any standard or requirement. It was just something that came to mind.
Oh, totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just do it as another directory and just keep them separate. And then that way, if one of them, if there's a problem in one, then we just go find out, what changed. So. Yeah, just let me know like where I would put this, or if you guys haven't figured out where you want to do contributions, figure it out, let me know, and I'll put a PR in and we'll get the basic stuff in there.
Yeah, I think maybe we can ask Eitan and Will to come next week and talk more about the Learn website, because that would be like a potential place for it. It's just like integrated with the docs.
Cool.
Well, any other questions?
I need to drop in a second, but do we want to briefly talk about the 2.0.3 or 4 patch release real quick?
Sure. What do we want to talk about?
I think Danny, and you're running through that. If I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. Tim Thanks for the reminder. So I have not heard back from the LLMD community, and I haven't circled back with them because it kind of goes back to the issue that I was just talking about, where the EDE tests have this race, or I'm finding this race condition that the EDE test exposed. Let's actually go to the issue here. Give me a second, unless someone has it handy for cutting the patch release. Otherwise, give me 1 second, I'll pull it up. All right, yep, I found it here. I'll put it in the chat window so everyone else has it too. Chat. All right, now how can I get back to the window? So we've got all the issues. The last one, backporting. This is not a blocker, so I think I mentioned it yesterday during a meeting that I could pull this out, and then we have these three. I just I'm nervous with these E2Es being flaky because of this race condition. So if we, if we need to cut a patch release, we can go ahead and do that for maybe some of these other issues within the patch release. I just wasn't sure how urgent it was to fix some of these other issues.
Yeah, Tim, do you have any feedback based on, like, I ideally, and from my perspective, I think we should spend some more time figuring out the race, because it's a little strange. And like the way what you're describing should probably happen with like Kubernetes services and like other backends as well. Yeah, I think it's worth spending some time, but I also don't know if it's like a release blocker or a patch blocker.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We should spend some cycles there. I'd have to look Danny into the race condition. It's possible it's like a known problem. I just haven't been following this thread too closely. I gotta drop though, guys, for another meeting. Just shoot me a message if there's something that blocks us. I think we should just cut it. It's been a while.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, I'll see you guys later.
All right, so why don't I do this? I'll just put a hard stop by the end of the day. If I can't resolve this, then tomorrow, first thing, priority one will be cutting this release, and I'll just adjust accordingly based on the outcome of root causing potentially this race condition.
Yeah, this is just something I noticed. In addition to having type task, we should probably have like a release type or like a label maybe, but we can revisit that later.
Okay.
But yeah, I think end of the day is a good like stopping point. And then yeah, let us know what you discover, and based on that we can make a decision.
Okay, and either way, I'll when I start cutting the release, which will most likely be first thing tomorrow, I'll make sure that I just on the channel give everyone the heads up that I'm going to start cutting the release.
Yep, perfect.
Cool.
All right. Any other questions, or that was the last item? I think we're a little over, so thanks everyone.
Thanks, Nina, for leading.
Right. So,
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Cheers.